I'm Rebecca Rachmany. I'm the CEO of Gangly Sister Productions, and I'm here with Shoor. So why don't you introduce yourself? Say a little bit what you do and what you've done.
Hi, I'm Iris. I'm a co-founder of Takipi, and we help developers to understand why they're experiencing problems with their production environment.
What kinds of specific incidents were there where you thought, oh, this is over now, and how did you get out of it?
Let me share a story about the second startup. I think it's even harder to experience these kind of failures and breakpoints with the second company, because we were sure that it's going to be much easier than the first one. We know what to do, we have the network, we know the investors, and so on. And when we started Takipi, I had to make like a very hard switch from marketing to architects and engineers, which was more of a B2C game, and moved to developers, and which is a whole different audience. And I had like 2-3 months that I felt like I can contribute to the company. I believe that because I came from a very different market and a very different background, it brought something entirely different to the company. So our entire branding is, we're using cartoons and monsters to attract users, and that's something which came from the dark point of I don't know what to do and I can't market to developers and I'm not sure how to work with them. I believe that the dark points and the break points always bring something else to the table, and that's how you make unique startups and successful ones.
So next time I'm having a problem, I should bring some monsters?
Yeah, probably
okay.
So, yeah.
Okay.
It's a great marketing tool.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's so bizarre. Nobody would have thought that worked. I mean, does that happen a lot, that you come up with crazy ideas and they work?
Yeah, but they don't seem crazy to me. It's like, for me, it seems like the most obvious idea. Okay, let's just use cartoons instead of screenshots or video.
Well, it's one thing to have a failure and know that, oh, I tried this marketing campaign and nobody listened and nobody looked. It's another thing to actually be in a meeting with a user and have something not work. What do you say to users or investors or anybody that you're right in front of them when it doesn't work?
I use a couple of different techniques in order to face these challenges, because it's not easy to hear no, and it's not easy to fail. So I would say that the first thing is just about a numbers game. So I know that I usually try to decide to how many users or bloggers or prospects to approach before I start, because I know that it's very likely that the first blogger is not going to answer or the first user is going to say no. So I decided I'm going to schedule meetings with 10 different users, for example. And before I complete this batch, I'm concentrated about the 10 users. So it's much easier. So it's not like, oh my god, I met this like huge company and they said no and I'm not sure what to do now. It's like I'm meeting 10 different customers. If all of them are going to say no, I'm going to understand that something is wrong with the product. If 2 or 3 of them are going to say yes, it's a good outcome. And I try to keep being very positive. So if someone said no, I can learn about the product, or I can understand why it said no. And so that's a very important part, because I don't think it's not a failure. It's a way to understand better what to do now. I know that with my first company, after like 3 or 4 months, we tried to raise money from probably like 8 or 9 different VCs, and all of them said no. And when a year later, when we came back to fundraising, it was so much easier. It's like the first angel that we've met said yes, but it was just because of like the 8 different no's, and we knew exactly during this year what to do and what not to do. So that's how I try to look at it. And one other thing that I try to do is to keep things in perspective. So it's not like I'm meeting Facebook and it's like I'm Iris meeting the entire Facebook. It's like I'm meeting someone called Jason, and it's just a meeting, and he doesn't represent the entire Facebook. And if I'm going to fail, it's not like I'm going to ruin the company. It's just like it's a meeting, I'm meeting someone, it's a person, not a company.
But what do you do about people giving you that funny look or saying that's never going to work? You know, that first reaction that people have is very off-putting if you're, for some people.
Yeah, maybe that's one of the most challenging parts about the startup, because you need to invent something new. Even if you're not super creative, you're doing something different than things that you know. And I would say that for me, it's kind of the essence of the startup, doing something different and going with your intuitions and being brave and doing something which is not similar to anything else. So maybe that's the meaning of being an entrepreneur, doing different stuff.